All right. So I've decided to do my oral assessment on the question, what are the basic ideas and flaws of trickle-down economics? So as for why it's a relevant, important question, it's still relevant because of President Trump's tax cuts in 2017. Even his chief academic advisor is quoted as saying, "We create wage inflation, which means that workers get paid more, the workers have more disposable income, the workers spend more, and we see the whole trickle down to the economy, and that's good for the economy." So obviously the phrase trickle down economics is still a highly relevant, uh, talked about phrase even today. As for how this is an economics question, taxes are a fundamental part of the economy. They are a critical incentive for working for money, and any changes to the tax system could result in increased growth at best or increased inflation at worst. So first, how is trickle-down economics supposed to work in theory? Trickle-down economics states that the tax breaks and the benefits for big businesses and the wealthy will eventually trickle down to everybody else. It pushes for income and capital gains tax breaks and other financial benefits for the 1% in order to stimulate economic growth. It hinges on two arguments: that society will benefit from the growth, and growth is most likely going to come from those with resources and skills to increase productive output. So, the first example of it was Reaganomics with Reagan's 1981 program for economic recovery, and then later examples were President Bush's and President Donald Trump's. So the main argument for this hinges on the Laffer curve, which is the bell curve relationship between the changes in government tax rates and the total tax it receives. So both at 0% and 100% income tax produces $0 in tax money for the government, and the highest total of tax the government can receive is some point in the middle. If the government rate is too high, tax cuts could theoretically boost growth and tax revenue. So those who argue for trickle-down economics would say that we are currently at too high a tax rate, and by cutting it, we could theoretically get more for our dollar. So why does it not work in practice? The biggest reason that trickle-down economics doesn't work is because it often makes the rich richer without helping the lower classes, and even if it does help the lower classes, it's not necessarily American lower classes. So trickle-down economics is supply-side economics taken to its extremes. So supply-side economics, each time a good or service is produced and sold, it generates income that earns someone money in the chain of production. So a given value of supply must create a equivalent value of demand somewhere in the economy. So supply-siders believe that lower taxes will lift all boats together. However, cutting taxes for the wealthy hasn't translated into increased rates of employment, consumer spending, and government revenue in the long term. The added income for the wealthy has simply increased the growing income inequality for the United States. And as an example, you can look at President George W. Bush's 2004 to 2005 oversee corporate profit reparation program. The idea was that it would lead to an influx of cash on the investment side, but what corporations actually ended up doing was buying back shares. It was an investment, but an investment that didn't create jobs. Another flaw with trickle-down economics is that there's nothing stopping the rich from taking the money that they receive from the U.S. tax cuts to other countries like China, India, countries like that, and then the growth that was promised for the American people would trickle away. So what are some possible limitations to my arguments? So first, I am not a millionaire. If I was, I might agree that giving tax cuts to the 1% is a great idea. A more serious limitation is that we haven't had a pure example of trickle-down economics. As an example, Reagan's economic recovery could have been because of increased government spending, or it could have been because of trickle-down economics. Like, there's no way to really tell and separate the two. So some assumptions that would need to change, as I said earlier with the Laffer's curve, if the government tax rate is too high, then maybe it could be brought down and to maximize growth. One key unknown is the extent to which tax savings could be applied to ways that produce growth. not all rich people spend their money in the same way. If they donate money to charities, education, Medicare, then maybe the added funds from trickle-down economics might not be as flawed. That being said, there's not really any indication that rich people spend their money in this way. And then, as explained earlier, there's nothing stopping the rich from taking their money that they receive from U.S. tax cuts to other countries like China or India. So the benefits of investing back into the home country must outweigh the benefits of increased profits from globalization. As for my confidence, I am fairly confident in my conclusion. And if anything, the evidence points to cutting taxes on specific middle class professions to have a larger beneficial spillover compared to upper classes. These are the sources I used. I used a variety of sources, including videos, websites, and course readings.